On a night illuminated by the full moon, the sky sparkled with countless stars, casting a magical glow over the scene. A group of brave knights stood in anticipation, their armor gleaming under the moonlight. Suddenly, a powerful voice pierced the air. The commander knight rallied his comrades, urging them to attack and defeat the figure they believed to be a demon. The so-called demon, driven by unwavering determination, swiftly charged towards the horde of knights. Closing in on the commander, who was issuing orders. The demon unleashed a mighty swing of his sword, bringing a swift end to the commander's life with a single strike. Without hesitation, the demon, now standing amidst the fallen, unleashed a potent ability, pressing his hand firmly against the ground. In an instant, a haunting purple fire engulfed all the knights present, mercilessly snuffing out their lives. Overwhelmed and exhausted, the demon sank to his knees, his breath ragged. It was then that he felt a presence drawing near. He turned his gaze to see a female knight with fiery red hair approaching him. Wearing an expression filled with pain, she confronted him, addressing him as Nox von Reinharber, and demanded to know why he had made a pact with the devil and betrayed them. Nox, still catching his breath, looked ahead and countered her accusation. He smiled faintly and stated that from their perspective, it might seem like a betrayal. However, he asserted that it was they who had betrayed him, not the other way around. The female knight, filled with frustration, implored Nox to stop arguing and simply tell her when he had become so broken. In response, Nox began to explain that the beginning of his journey was like a crash landing. Suddenly, a notification popped up on the monitor and informed Yoo Chan, the player controlling Nox, that he had successfully cleared the first part of a game called Lunatic, with a total clear count of 27. Yoo Chan expressed satisfaction with his achievements, acknowledging the acquisition of valuable items and the successful completion of hidden quests. However, behind this facade of success, a somber reality loomed. He had received the news that he would die the following month. Reflecting on the past, 2 years prior, Yoo Chan had visited multiple hospitals, seeking answers about his condition. The doctor's explanation had been unsettling, advising him not to panic and simply listen. Despite undergoing numerous tests, the results remained consistent, leaving him with little hope. The doctor had prescribed pain relief medication, suggesting he take them when the pain became unbearable. Alone in his room, Yoo Chan pondered the passage of time, realizing that 2 years had already slipped by. As he glanced at the calendar, a sudden bout of illness struck, causing him to vomit blood. Staring at the crimson stains on his hands, a profound understanding washed over him. Yoo Chan accepted the harsh reality that his days were numbered, acknowledging that dwelling on the inevitable wouldn't change the final outcome. Feeling isolated and devoid of social connection, Yoo Chan heard a series of notifications and saw that they were hospital appointment confirmations. He couldn't help but feel lonely, realizing that no one had reached out to him after his memory loss, and he had no one to reach out to in return. Additionally, his deteriorating health prevented him from venturing outside, intensifying his isolation. Glancing at the papers on his desk, he saw various documents related to late-stage cancer support groups, church flyers, and hospice options. Overwhelmed by the emotions welling up within him, Yoo Chan discarded the papers, and tears escaped his eyes. Turning his attention to the monitor in front of him, Yoo Chan noticed Lunatic prompting him to start a new game. He contemplated his limited options and decided that this was all he had left. With a sense of resignation, he entered the player's name as Carl. Lost in thought, Yoo Chan pondered the kind of character he should create this time. He weighed the options, considering the possibilities of a mana sensitivity genius and swordsmanship and combat genius. However, a warning message appeared, cautioning him about the penalties associated with choosing multiple genius traits. It urged him to select only one or fewer genius traits to avoid those penalties. Noticing that the neutral trait was empty, Yoo Chan's attention was drawn to the negative trait listed as terminally ill. He laughed, realizing that he and his character were both afflicted with this condition. Despite this revelation, he decided to proceed and accepted the game's prompt to start with the chosen character. Suddenly, a strange sensation overcame Yoo Chan, causing him to fall from his chair. Fear gripped him as he wondered if he was truly dying at that moment. On his monitor, a message displayed that character creation was successful. He thought that if he were to die, he would at least want to die on his own terms. A notification appeared, alerting him that his character's name had been forcibly changed. Shortly after, another notification appeared, indicating a synchronization level of 4%. then it increased to 6% and further climbed to 19%. Finally, the synchronization abruptly halted at 71%, and another notification appeared, announcing that the character's settings were completed. As he awakened, Yoo Chan found himself in a state of disbelief. He surveyed his surroundings with astonishment, wondering if this place could truly be what he thought it was. In search of answers, he approached a nearby mirror, observing his reflection intently. A sense of familiarity washed over him, and he came to a startling realization that he had become the worst character known as Nox von Reinharber in this accursed game. Nox von Reinharber, the youngest of 5 siblings in the Reinharber family, was a member of the infamous organization Lunatic. Throughout history, the Reinharber family had produced exceptionally talented individuals skilled in magic and swordsmanship. However, Nox stood as an exception, an untalented outcast within his own family. Haunted by resentment toward a world that denied him the gifts bestowed upon his siblings, Nox made a fateful decision. He entered into a forbidden contract with the devil, ultimately transforming himself into the most despicable villain in the inner Lunatic story. Gazing at his altered appearance in the mirror, Yoo Chan couldn't help but question the reality before him. It felt surreal, as if he had stepped into a dream where he had become Nox. But his excitement grew as he unexpectedly encountered a stat window. He observed the information displayed within the window, revealing his basic details. His name was Nox von Reinharber, a 14-year-old male human with darkness as his main element. However, his enthusiasm quickly diminished as he noticed his stats. With disappointment, he questioned the low value of only 2 points in stamina. Nox's attention then turned to his traits. He discovered a neutral trait called Void Revelation, which piqued his curiosity. However, his spirits sank as he read through his negative traits: terminally ill, curse of the weak, frequent sickness, cold hands and feet, impossession. The realization that he was terminally ill in both his real life and this new world left him disheartened. The system also displayed that he had only 1 year of lifespan remaining. Nox reflected on his past actions, trying to make sense of why he had chosen to create a character with a terminal illness, someone who faced imminent death and had no support. Upon further contemplation, he began to understand his underlying motivation. He wanted a character that mirrored his own experiences, someone who could empathize with his struggles. Little did he know that he would eventually become that character himself. Suddenly, a notification appeared, indicating an unread mail in his mailbox. Nox's curiosity compelled him to investigate its contents. The mail began with a greeting, addressing him as Yoo Chan, his previous name, but then it corrected itself, saying that it should call him by his new name, Nox. Nox was surprised and questioned how the system knew his name. Yoo Chan was a name given to him by his parents, whose whereabouts he was unaware of. Nox couldn't help but question if the entity that put him here held the key to unlocking his lost memories. The system acknowledged that Nox wouldn't remember them but conveyed the need to deliver a message. It greeted him with a nostalgic long time no see, leaving Nox astounded. The system went on to acknowledge Nox's achievements over the past 2 years, affirming that he deserved to be where he was now. It offered a warm welcome back, leaving Nox in a state of disbelief. Nox couldn't fathom the reality unfolding before him. The notion that his old world was gone and that this new existence was now his reality seemed impossible to accept. The system responded, acknowledging its limitations in disclosing certain aspects of its identity but expressing a genuine desire to assist Nox. Nox questioned the concept of help, struggling to grasp the situation at hand. Just as he tried to comprehend it all, the system suggested that he join the Eldian Academy, where he could strengthen his forces and closely follow the main story, assuring that the complete truth would gradually reveal itself. As the system mail started to fade away, Nox exclaimed in surprise, wondering if that was all. Worry crept into his mind as he attempted to gather his thoughts. He realized that he had been reborn as the final boss of the game, Inner Lunatic, and now he was being asked to adhere to the main story. Inevitably, this meant that his demise awaited him. Nox's thoughts raced as he contemplated his situation. Although Inner Lunatic had become his new reality, he refused to give up on reclaiming his lost memories. He was determined to follow the main story and uncover the purpose behind his existence, all while ensuring his survival. For that purpose, he embraced his role as a true villain. Reflecting on his previous life, Nox acknowledged that not much had changed. 2 years before losing his memories, he had been plagued by a terminal illness. Every moment had reminded him of his impending death, and fear had consumed him. Now, The only difference was the shift to a familiar world he knew all too well. Curiosity compelled Nox to inquire about the current date. When the system displayed February 4, 1812, urgency coursed through him. Time was not on his side, and he had to act swiftly. With determination burning within him, he resolved to embark on his 28th attempt to clear the game. As Nox reached for the doorknob, intense pain surged through his wrist bones, turning them red. To his surprise, a notification appeared, revealing the activation of a negative trait. It informed him that due to the effects of his constant sickness, he had acquired wrist inflammation level 1, urging him to rest and allow it to heal. Disbelieving, Nox muttered in astonishment, unable to comprehend the situation. Moving down the hallway, Nox clenched his hand tightly, troubled by the fragility he felt within his body. Unexpectedly, a maid collided with him, causing her to lose balance and the tray of dishes she carried to shatter on the floor. The maid looked up in surprise, her eyes widening as she recognized Nox. She whispered his name, young Master Nox, and Nox met her gaze, feeling a flicker of recognition. Could this maid with her brown hair and light orange pupils truly be Rona? Fragmented and vague memories stirred within him, recalling Rona speaking ill of him behind his back. He wondered if this seemingly innocent girl, standing before him with tear-filled eyes, had been the one spreading rumors. Nox decided to grant her forgiveness, but not without a warning. An evil grin spread across his face as he contemplated the consequences she might face for any future mistakes. Rona, with tearful eyes, understood the gravity of the situation and nodded in acknowledgement. The tranquility surrounding Nox caught his attention, and the surprised gazes of the butler and maids confirmed that his momentary madness had slipped his mind. He questioned himself, pondering the kind of life he had led thus far. Rona looked at Nox cautiously and asked where he was going so early. Nox simply replied, stating that he was heading to the practice hall. The butler and maids reacted with shock upon hearing his response, unable to comprehend his sudden decision. Nox wore a smile on his face as he added that he wanted Rona to accompany him. Fear instantly gripped Rona's thoughts as she pondered Nox's intentions. Together, Nox and Rona walked toward the practice hall. In Nox's mind, the paramount importance of survival loomed large. Having experienced the chilling embrace of death, he had become resolute in his desire to evade it. He understood that adapting quickly to his new circumstances was crucial. Deep in thought, Nox assumed a contemplative posture. He knew that despite the challenges ahead, he still held a chance. With 27 previous playthroughs, he possessed extensive knowledge of the game's hidden aspects. Lunatic had gained worldwide popularity with its captivating story that pitted angels against demons and the Empire. However, what truly set Lunatic apart was its extensive customization options, allowing players to adopt different playstyles. While lower-ranked traits like Ordinary and Talented could be assigned multiple times, the highly sought-after Genius traits were typically limited to a single assignment. Yet, Nox possessed 2 Genius traits, a rare occurrence in the game. By exploiting the system's attempt to analyze traits beyond the player's limits, he managed to assign 2 Genius traits. The first was Swordsmanship and Combat Genius, which granted exceptional sword skills and allowed the user to reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. The second trait, Mana Sensitivity Genius, heightened the user's sensitivity to magic, enabling more efficient spellcasting. Nox contemplated the vast array of other useful traits at his disposal. Insight, as a main character perk, bestowed the ability to view the status window of other characters, providing valuable information. Additionally, Master of Acting allowed the user to effortlessly adapt to any situation, proving particularly advantageous in his current circumstances. Furthermore, Steel Mentality, when utilized during battle, enabled the user to maintain mental fortitude, keeping a cool and composed demeanor. Nox assessed his negative traits, acknowledging the significant challenges they posed. Among them, the terminally ill stood out the most. The other negative traits he possessed were the Curse of the Weak, frequent sickness, cold hands and feet, and possession. Those afflicted with cold hands and feet found it nearly impossible to enter icy areas without a warming skill. With frequent sickness, Nox anticipated fainting at least once every chapter due to its effects. Contemplating his situation, Nox realized he had no other choice but to proceed step by step, accepting the challenges that lay ahead. Observing Nox standing still, Rona, with a hint of disbelief, wondered if he truly intended to enter the practice hall. Moments later, her surprise grew as she witnessed Nox walking toward the gate. Nox pushed open the gate, determined to confront the first obstacle, the curse of the weak. This curse afflicted users from birth, reducing their growth rate by half and making them twice as susceptible to enemy debuffs. As Nox continued his sword practice, a profound sense of despair washed over him. No matter how much he pondered the situation, he could only reach one conclusion: he was doomed. Exhausted and lying on the ground, Nox struggled to catch his breath. The realization that he couldn't swing the sword more than 10 times struck him deeply. He lamented the immense difficulty imposed by the curse of the weak. Looking around, Nox found solace in the abundance of weapons available. This wealth of weaponry was a testament to the Reinharber family's origins, centered around the sword. Known as the High House of the Blade in Darkness, the Reinharber family had earned this title through their mastery of imbuing attribute magic into their dark blades. With great proficiency, they could slash through their enemies. All of this was made possible by the legendary Commander's Blade, also known as the Tyrannical Blade of Darkness. This ancestral sword had been passed down through generations, carrying on the tradition and legacy of the Reinharber family. Nox contemplated the advantages of being part of a noble family, setting aside his prowess in swordsmanship. One of the greatest benefits was the abundance of wealth. With a delighted expression, he admired the Reinharber family's substantial fortune. As one of the prominent noble families in the story, their wealth was so significant that even their seemingly useless young son, Nox, had enough money to sustain a life without ever having to work. Nox believed that his father, Teo, likely didn't concern himself with how wisely Nox managed his finances. After all, Nox didn't possess that kind of character. As the youngest son of a noble family, his character archetype was clear. With his legs trembling, Nox managed to stand up. He remembered Rona's fearful behavior and her plea not to involve her in anything strange. A few minutes earlier, Rona had brought a wooden sword and a towel, informing Nox that they were ready for him. However, she couldn't help but wonder if he truly intended to engage in exercise. Nox realized that there was no one around and motioned for Rona to come closer. Rona displayed a frightened demeanor, questioning his intentions and expressing concern that he might hit her. Nox, caught up in his frustration, exclaimed and asked her what she was talking about. He then grasped Rona's ear, pulling her closer, and whispered something in her ear. After hearing Nox, Rona shouted in surprise, questioning his plans. She looked at him, expressing her disbelief that his ideas were merely garbage. However, Nox commanded her to figure it out and sharply told her to be quiet. Rona replied with a trembling voice, acknowledging his request. As Rona left to retrieve the requested items, she couldn't help but think to herself that the young master hadn't changed a bit. Meanwhile, Nox contemplated the time it would take for Rona to complete her task, hoping that everything would be ready by tomorrow. He poured himself some tea, pondering a solution to his curse and the need to increase his stamina. Suddenly, a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Rodwell d'Ernark, the head butler. Nox was taken aback as he recognized Rodwell, who held a significant position as one of the main managers of the Reinharber estate. Rodwell served as an advisor to Nox's father, Teo von Reinharber, who was also the family head. Nox realized that dealing with Rodwell wouldn't be as straightforward as with others since he held a position of authority within the family. Nox pondered the encounter, considering it a potentially significant challenge. He wondered if Rodwell had noticed something unusual happening and contemplated his own means of handling the situation. Nox activated his positive trait of Master of Acting and questioned Rodwell's presence, stating that the head butler should be serving the family head. Head butler Rodwell informed Nox that he had received orders to share some news with him. Nox curiously inquired about the nature of the news. The head butler revealed that Nox was instructed to participate in tonight's dinner. Nox, unfamiliar with the family and the situation, hesitated at the idea of having dinner with the family head. He contemplated the request, realizing his lack of knowledge about the family dynamics. Nox responded to the head butler, expressing his reluctance to attend the dinner. Head butler internally pondered the master's intentions behind ordering young Master Nox to participate in the dinner. Head butler then reported that the lady of the Stilliner family had arrived and was seeking night training. He emphasized that if Nox refused to participate, it would likely anger the family head. Nox let out a sigh, acknowledging the circumstances. He understood the importance of following his father's orders and reluctantly agreed to attend the dinner. Head butler observed Nox with a questioning gaze and thought aloud that something was off about him that day. Nox, somewhat defensive, asked if there was something the head butler wanted to say. the head butler acknowledged Nox's unusual behavior, noting that Nox had never shown much interest in wielding a blade before. He inquired about the reason behind Nox's decision to visit the practice hall on his own. Nox, with a stern expression, firmly asserted his independence and authority, warning the head butler not to overstep his boundaries as a mere butler. He made it clear that his actions and intentions were his own to decide. Taken aback, the head butler apologized, recognizing that he had crossed the line. As Nox walked away, the head butler's gaze was filled with questioning thoughts, realizing the need to report this encounter to the family head. Inside his room, Nox closed the door and took a moment to catch his breath. He reflected on the unexpected confrontation, feeling relieved that possession didn't activate. Nox shifted his focus to the mention of the young lady from the Stilliner family, wondering why she was present in their household. During the dinner, Nox found himself being mocked by twin brothers Hartz and Alan. Alan expressed surprise and disbelief that Nox had shown up, indicating that he wouldn't enjoy the meal because of it. Hartz questioned whether Nox still had regrets about being part of the family, to which Alan agreed. Alan directly addressed Nox, expressing his disbelief at seeing him there and accusing him of inappropriate behavior with one of the maids. Hartz joined in, stating that Nox was a lost cause. Despite the mocking, Nox remained calm, recognizing that he hadn't done anything to warrant such treatment. At that moment, Yoo von Reinharber, the family head of the Reinharber family and Nox's father, entered the scene. Nox acknowledged his presence, aware of his role within the family. Following Teo's arrival, a beautiful girl with red hair introduced herself as Talia von Stilliner. The family head mentioned that Talia had requested night practice and would be spending time at their estate, urging everyone to greet her warmly. Nox gazed at Talia and contemplated her significance. In the game Lunatic, she was the hero and the character who opposed the future villain, Nox. Nox recognized that in the near future, it would be Talia who would eventually stab him in the chest with a sword. Family head Teo acknowledged Nox's presence at the dinner and suggested that since everyone was gathered, they should proceed with the meal. During the dinner, Nox observed Hartz and Alan engaged in a discussion. Hartz proposed to their father, Teo, that it was time to decide the next person to enter Eldian Academy. Teo considered the suggestion and agreed that it was indeed the appropriate time to make that decision. Eldian Academy held great importance within the game Lunatic, serving as the place where pupils faced various challenges and fought demons, forming the main storyline. Nox realized that attending the academy was crucial for him. It would allow him to gather his own allies while following the overall structure of the story. However, family head Teo clarified that Eldian Academy only permitted 3 individuals from each family to attend. This limitation aimed to restrict the influence of the nobles. Teo mentioned that he had already used 2 slots for his first and second sons, leaving the Reinharber family with just 1 more entrance ticket available for the academy. Nox listened to the family head's announcement and contemplated the importance of obtaining the remaining entrance ticket to Eldian Academy. He understood that he needed to do whatever it took to secure that ticket before he could focus on forming alliances. Nox spoke up and concluded that the family head was proposing a fight between the brothers. This took the family head by surprise, as he hadn't expected Nox to be the first to react. Confirming Nox's assumption, the family head declared that a duel would take place in the practice hall 1 month from now to determine the next attendee. The duel would follow their family traditions for such decisions. Hartz took the opportunity to mock Nox, urging him to stay quiet to avoid embarrassing himself. Alan joined in, belittling Nox and stating that someone like him, who had never wielded a sword, stood no chance against them. Nox calmly took a sip of his wine and responded to Alan's taunts, stating that they could discuss it after he emerged victorious. Alan expressed disbelief in Nox's abilities, but Nox remained focused. He understood that the upcoming duel was another trial he needed to face in order to secure the entrance ticket. He refused to be swayed by the taunts and insults directed at him. Confident in his own abilities, Nox looked ahead and boldly declared that he would be the one to attend Eldian Academy. This surprised the family head and further infuriated Hartz and Alan. Talia, the young lady from the Stilliner family, chuckled at Nox's declaration and commented on his confidence. Nox glanced at her but internally felt a sense of unease, realizing that he might have drawn the attention of someone he shouldn't have. Inside the family head's office, Teo acknowledged that something had indeed changed about Nox, as reported by the head butler. Teo pondered the cause of this change, wondering if Nox had been possessed by a demon. Regardless, he acknowledged that Nox had captured his attention. Teo instructed the head butler, Rodwell, to continue keeping a close eye on Nox. The family head was curious about the transformation in Nox and wanted to understand the reasons behind it. Meanwhile, Nox was running at the practice hall, sweating and panting heavily. Observing the scene, one of the maids commented on his frequent visits to the practice hall. Another maid mentioned the upcoming duel in 1 month, sparking curiosity among them about Nox's sudden dedication to physical training. Nox overheard their conversation, wondering why he was able to pick out their words so clearly and questioning if he had a special trait. At that moment, he received a system message indicating a slight increase in his stamina stat. Nox expressed disappointment at the small increment and reflected on the significance of stamina for him. He recognized that his low stamina was his greatest obstacle and a hindrance to unlocking his full potential with the trait swordsmanship and combat genius. Nox understood that the requirement to utilize the trait was to have his stamina stat reach 4. However, due to the curse of the week, it had taken him a month to increase his stamina by only 1.9 points. Nox felt frustrated with the curse of the week, a trait that reduced his growth rate by half. Despite putting in a lot of effort, he had only managed to increase his stamina by a small amount, and the terminal illness trait further hindered his progress. Nox realized that he needed to exert 4 times as much effort compared to others just to see minimal improvements. The difficulty of his situation weighed heavily on him. However, Nox decided to set aside those concerns for the time being. Just then, Rona arrived, pushing a moving tray filled with the materials Nox had requested the previous day. Nox acknowledged her arrival, realizing that she was faster than he had anticipated. With the supplies now available, he felt confident about making progress. Contemplating how to reach a stamina level of 4, Nox reassured himself that there were no issues. He believed that his knowledge would allow him to overcome any obstacles. Curious about the purpose of the materials, Rona questioned why Nox needed them, expressing concern about their dangerous nature and their expensive cost. She pointed out that the scroll seemed to be the only useful item among them. Nox simply replied that people didn't know how to use those materials effectively, implying that their usefulness was hidden from others. As Rona looked at him with a questioning expression, Nox picked up a bottle of elixir and drank it in one go. Panicking, Rona shouted that it was poison. Sweat covered Nox's face as he acknowledged the potency of the poison. A system notification appeared, indicating that Nox had consumed the poison of the 3-headed gorgon and his health would temporarily increase by 1.5 times. It also informed him that his death counter had started, with 9 minutes and 59 seconds remaining until death. As Rona grew increasingly panicked, she exclaimed that she would call the head butler for assistance. However, Nox urged her to wait and proceeded to eat the core, ignoring her pleas. Rona's worry intensified as she exclaimed that the core was not meant for consumption. A system notification appeared, indicating that Nox had consumed the core of the golem and would slowly be petrified as a result. Another notification followed, stating that a hidden piece had been activated and that the poison of the 3-headed gorgon was reacting with the golem's core. Nox was pleased with the results and thought that his plan was working perfectly. The golem's core was originally used to petrify people or increase their defense quickly, or to create artificial golems. However, when combined with the 3-headed gorgon poison, it had a special effect. Notifications continued to appear, indicating that a special effect had been activated and the poison of the 3-headed gorgon had been diluted, causing the negative trait curse of the week to disappear. Nox was ecstatic, as the curse that had plagued him was now gone. However, Rona, with tears in her eyes, looked at Nox and expressed her concern, fearing that he might soon die. Ignoring her worries, Nox suddenly began to unbutton his shirt, causing Rona to cover her eyes in embarrassment and exclaim in shock. After unbuttoning his shirt further, Nox poured an elixir bottle onto his head, prompting a series of notifications to appear. The dew of the Remembering Fairy countered the petrification effects of the golem's core, and a hidden piece was activated. Nox felt a surge of satisfaction as his plan unfolded precisely as intended. The notification informed him that the Blessing of Growth, a temporary trait, was granted through the interaction of the dew and the golem's core. This blessing would double his stat growth until his stamina reached 5. Left with only the scroll, Nox picked it up and activated the Rapid Stamina Growth scroll with another notification confirming his action. This scroll would double his stamina growth rate. As Nox contemplated the results, he realized that he had successfully eliminated the curse, and with the Blessing of Growth mitigating the debuffs from the terminally ill trait, coupled with the effects of the scroll, his current growth rate should be twice that of most people. This meant he should be able to increase his stamina stat at a much faster pace. Suddenly, Rona leaped onto Nox, causing him to momentarily lose his balance. Concern filled her teary eyes as she questioned his well-being. Nox, slightly annoyed at her interruption, initially demanded a towel but softened when he saw her distress. With a reassuring smile, he assured Rona that he was fine. She continued to worry, suggesting he should rest and consider calling the head butler for assistance. Nox, once again, reassured her, insisting that he was all right. Curious about his next course of action, Rona inquired about his plans. Nox simply replied with a single word, "Run." In that moment, Nox and Rona sprinted through the practice hall, their actions capturing the attention of Talia, who stood nearby, observing them. Talia, who had been closely observing Nox, couldn't comprehend why someone as seemingly weak as him would accept a match against his brothers. Her maid, Emma, tried to caution Talia against staring at Nox and reminded her of proper etiquette. However, Talia interrupted Emma, expressing her frustration and disbelief at Nox's lack of sword skills and refusal to accept help from the other knights of Reinharber. Talia couldn't shake off her annoyance, though she couldn't fully understand why she was so bothered by Nox's situation when she believed he would simply end up getting beaten up within a month. Despite her thoughts, Talia's annoyance persisted. Determined to address the matter, Talia walked towards the practice hall, informing her maid, Emma, that she would be right back. Approaching Nox as he rested, Talia introduced herself, stating her name. Nox was taken by surprise at her approach and wondered why she had sought him out. He asked her what she wanted, noting that he had heard her name before. Talia, feeling somewhat flustered by Nox's cold attitude, thought to herself that he must have been taken aback by her beauty. She confronted Nox, questioning his confidence in being able to defeat his brothers, and asked if that was the reason why he had accepted the match. She further inquired whether he truly believed that he could defeat his brother by simply running away like this. Talia went on to offer her assistance, expressing her willingness to help him. However, Nox calmly rejected her offer, telling her to get lost and showing no interest in her help. Talia was taken aback by Nox's response and exclaimed in disbelief, expressing her indignation at being treated this way when she was offering her support. On the sidelines, Rona observed the exchange and thought that if Nox continued to speak in such a manner, it would make girls dislike him. Unwilling to persuade Nox any further, Talia turned to walk away from the practice hall, clearly upset with his refusal and dismissive attitude. Nox, using his insight ability on Talia, gained access to her stat window, allowing him to learn more about her abilities and traits. He observed that Talia possessed impressive stats, particularly in terms of stamina, which surpassed that of most grown males. While her potential may not match that of the 3 sword masters or the 4 great mages on the continent, Nox recognized that she had the potential to reach their level and effectively combat demons with her fire attribute magic. Nox also knew that in the near future, Talia's fire attribute magic would awaken to white flames and be used to burn the demonized version of himself. Understanding the significance of making Talia his ally at this point, as it would drastically alter the future events of the story, Nox pondered how to navigate the original story while avoiding his own demise. He questioned whether it was possible to maintain a good relationship with someone who would eventually be responsible for his death. 1 month later, Talia walked through the hallway, reflecting on the praise she had received for her quick learning abilities and the expectations tied to the Stillrainer family's talent. However, she couldn't help but feel inferior compared to her sister's exceptional talent. Talia questioned her own potential and wondered if she could ever become a knight. Reminding herself of the qualities and principles a knight must possess, she contemplated the path she needed to follow. Knights should never be consumed by greed, maintain a frugal lifestyle, and be willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. In addition, they must master the art of swordsmanship and adhere to proper form to become true knights. Talia pondered the possibility of Nox being able to defeat his brothers, who had trained for years, solely by focusing on cardio exercises. She expressed her doubt, believing it to be unlikely for him to succeed. The next day arrived, and Nox and Alan stood in the center of the ring, surrounded by a crowd of spectators eagerly awaiting the official duel that would determine who would earn the right to enter Eldian Academy. Thisila, the first wife of the family head, was also present at the scene. Meanwhile, the head butler, standing nearby, overheard the family head calling out to him. The family head inquired about the butler's thoughts on the outcome of the duel. After considering young Master Alan's past performances, the head butler stated that it was highly likely that Alan would emerge victorious. The family head agreed, assuming the same outcome. However, the head butler couldn't help but wonder if the family head had different expectations. Having once walked the path of a knight alongside the family head, the butler understood that the art of the blade could be intricate or straightforward. The level of skill and dedication determined one's proficiency. There was only one way to surpass someone previously ahead and force them to kneel, the insurmountable wall of overwhelming talent. The butler pondered whether young Master Nox possessed such innate talent. Interrupting the butler's thoughts, the family head spoke, acknowledging that the possibility might not be zero and that the youngest, born with Reinharber blood, might possess the talent of a sword emperor. As Nox stood in the duel grounds, he received a notification indicating that his trait, swordsmanship and combat genius, was inactive. Frustration washed over him as he contemplated his seemingly unlucky streak and questioned whether his luck stat was actually negative. Despite his efforts, he couldn't reach a stamina stat of 4. A few days earlier, while Nox was running, he received multiple notifications activating his trait effects and gradually increasing his stamina stat by 0.1. Now his stamina had reached 3.8. Rona, who ran alongside him, expressed her exhaustion and questioned whether she had to continue running with him. Nox, wiping sweat from his face, replied that it wouldn't be fun without her and jokingly mentioned who would take care of him if she didn't. Rona, with teary eyes, suspected that she heard him say something else. Nox then handed her a towel and assigned her another task, to which Rona responded with a pouting face. Playfully, Nox accused Rona of cursing him in her mind, but she denied it and accidentally bit her tongue in the process. Nox chuckled at the thought of Rona having good stamina and contemplated using his insight ability to view her stats. To his surprise, Rona's stamina stat was 4.5, surpassing his own despite his dedicated training. Nox was astonished by the strength of the Reinharber family, where even a maid was stronger than an average man. Rona reminded Nox that it was already evening and suggested he rest before the duel. Nox, panting heavily, felt the pressure of time and thought that he didn't have enough time to increase his stamina. Back at the duel ring, Alan addressed Nox and proposed that he should give up. Despite Nox being considered the shame of their family, Alan expressed hesitation in beating him too severely. Nox responded, stating that Alan didn't seem to want him to give up. Alan shifted his attention to Talia, the daughter of the Stillrainer family, and expressed his desire to impress her. He believed that Nox would assist him in achieving that goal. However, Nox expressed uncertainty about whether it was a wise decision. Observing Alan's stamina stat of 8, Nox realized that he couldn't defeat him using ordinary methods and contemplated alternative approaches. As the referee announced the duel between Nox and Alan for the admission ticket to Eldian Academy, he emphasized that both of them must accept whatever the results may be and that objections would not be tolerated. Nox felt nervous, realizing that everything hinged on this duel. His main objective was to find his memories and discover the sender of the letter, as he knew that after the 1-year grace period, his life would be in danger. The referee asked one last time if both of them were ready, and then he announced the beginning of the duel. Alan initiated the attack with a swift sword strike, aiming to strike Nox, but with agile dexterity, Nox evaded the blow by gracefully sidestepping. Reacting swiftly, Alan followed up with a forceful kick, intending to overpower Nox. However, Nox skillfully blocked the kick with his sword, although the impact still pushed him backward. Impressed by Nox's deft defense, Alan acknowledged his opponent's skill, and the duel pressed on, with Alan relentless in his assault, leaving Nox on the defensive. Amidst the intense clash, Nox recognized the consistent rule of the damned inner lunatic game, surrendering everything upon defeat, but regaining control over his destiny upon victory. Suddenly, a notification appeared, indicating an incremental increase of 0.1 in Nox's stamina stat. A smile adorned Nox's face as he witnessed this development, realizing that triumph in the duel held the potential to grant him all he desired. Observing Nox's smile, Alan jokingly questioned if he had struck Nox's head one too many times, determined to continue his relentless attacks in hopes of pacifying his opponent. Meanwhile, Fissila, Alan's mother, attentively observed the fight, confident that her son would be the final child of the family to gain entry into Eldian Academy. In the midst of the duel, Alan launched a ferocious attack, nearly causing Nox to lose his balance. It was at that moment that Fissila overheard a disapproving comment, diverting her attention to its source, the family head. His countenance betrayed disappointment, as he had eagerly anticipated witnessing Nox's transformation, only to find his current performance underwhelming. Inwardly, Fissila harbored aspirations for the day when the true extent of her power would be revealed to the family. Expressing his disappointment, the family head voiced his expectations, comparing the talents of Alan and Hearts to his firstborn son, Garen, finding them lacking. Memories of his past prowess, dominating opponents with overwhelming power while wielding the dark sword of domination, filled his mind. Contemplating who would ultimately inherit that formidable weapon, the family head resolved to bring an end to the duel, rising from his seat with determination. On the duel ring, Nox received a message notifying him of an incremental increase of 0.1 in his stamina, swiftly followed by the activation of his innate trait, swordsmanship and combat genius. Overwhelmed with excitement, Nox burst into laughter, catching both Alan and the family head off guard. Nox then employed a skill, triggering a system message that confirmed the activation of the skill Hour of the Genius. Nox's thoughts raced as he recollected a saying that distinguished geniuses and the talented, each having their own unique time. In that moment, he believed that it was his time, a moment of genius. With the skill now active, Nox perceived the world around him decelerating, as if time itself had slowed. This bestowed upon him a distinct advantage in the duel. While his adversary's movements appeared sluggish, his own actions quickened, enabling him to react swiftly and execute precise maneuvers. Fully utilizing this skill proved challenging, but with his innate trait, swordsmanship and combat genius, now activated, Nox wielded the skill with finesse. Seizing the opportunity, Nox unleashed a formidable assault against Alan, his strike powerful and unyielding. The force of the blow caused Alan's sword to be dislodged from his grip, leaving him defenseless. With victory within sight, Nox's determination intensified, firmly believing that he would emerge triumphant in the duel.